Hello and welcome, ladies and gents, boys and girls, story lovers all over the world, to another episode of Never Lost, where we recount and retell the old fairy tales and folk stories so that they will never be forgotten. Today, we're going to talk a little about the story of the Gay Goshawk, which I told in episode 5, and I'll also recite a narrative poem of the story which I've written. Before we get into that, though, I'd just like to thank everyone who has voiced their support for this new project. Anna S. at Zycon 5069, Connie McFarlane, and Tim Williams, to name just a few. Also, for the last episode specifically, which was an original story in memory of my Shetland sheepdog Beg, I've had so much support and positive feedback on Facebook at NeverLost-Pod and here on the YouTube channel at NeverLost-Stories from fantastic people like Alison Muir and Barbara Clark that I'm thinking about making original fairy tales for a modern audience a regular thing on the channel. Barbara's own YouTube channel, Beyond Affirmations, is dedicated to the power of our own words to change our lives. So if meditation and mind over body is something that anyone is interested in, then please look her up. Just search for Barbara Clark Beyond Affirmations on YouTube. For today's episode, I'd like to start off with the narrative poem which I've written, which briefly retells the story of the Gay Goshawk. I call it The Maid, the Knight, and the Goshawk. A very lang, lang time ago, a Scottish knight did to Windsor go, and there he met a lady rare. She was lovely, kind, and fair. The lady served as Queen Margaret's maid, where all would sing her accolade. By queen and court she was adored, the daughter of an English lord. Her cheeks were red as an English rose, her smile shone from beneath her nose. Beside her beauty none could compare, her deep blue eyes and her long blonde hair. She gave the knight a satin glove, a token of their new-found love. He swore that he'd stay by her side, and one day soon she would be his bride. Then her mother to Windsor came, and ordered the fair young lady hame. She had promised her daughter's hand to a wealthy English gentleman. The fair maid pleaded on her knees, I beg you, mother, don't do this, please. Though he be poor and a Jacobite, I wish to wed my Scottish knight. Her mother, she was unimpressed. She denied the fair maid's request. They left Windsor that very day, back to the maid's hame far away. The Scottish knight, when he was told, he rode back to his father's hold, and in his bed he turned and tossed, dreaming of the love he'd lost. The night he had a goshawk rare, that he had freed from a trapper's snare. It always perched beside his bed, and one evening the goshawk said, What is the problem, my master brave? Are you pining for your English maid? If you miss her and love her true, perhaps there's something I can do. The night he said to his goshawk rare, You could fly and find my lady fair, and along with her satin glove you'll take a message to my love. The goshawk left that very day, and never stopped along the way, over countryside and town, searching England up and down, until it saw with its keen eyes the castle that the knight described. 3 turrets and a chapel small, with cherry trees within the wall. The goshawk settled in a tree. From his perch he would clearly see the castle's ladies when they pass on their way to morning mass. It was early in the next morning when the small chapel's bell did ring. A crowd of ladies they passed by, and the fair maiden he did spy. Looking down from his perch above, the goshawk knew his master's love. Her blonde hair shone in the wind that blows, and her cheeks were red as an English rose. Fair maid walked back from the church, and she approached the goshawk's perch. When she passed beneath his seat, The goshawk sang out loud and sweet. As she heard the goshawk clear, the lady shed a single tear, and turned away and ran inside, and threw her window open wide. The goshawk flew to the window sill, his master's orders to fulfil. He gave the lady her satin glove, which she had gifted to her love. The goshawk spoke of his master's plight, and how he pined for her every night. The lady swore she loved him true, and told the goshawk what to do. You must fly back to my dear heart, and tell him he should quickly start, making cake and wedding ale, and I shall come before it's stale. When 9 more days have come and passed, we'll be together then at last. If I'm successful at my work, then we shall meet at St. Mary's Kirk. The lady went to her father's side, and begged the old man, her blue eyes wide. If she should die, it was her request that in Scotland she be laid to rest. At the first church let the bells ring, at the second let the people sing. At the third church lay me down upon St. Mary's chapel ground. Although it was his greatest fear, her father loved his daughter dear. So, if it should come to pass, he vowed to do as she had asked. Late that night, while the castle slept, into the forest the lady crept. Under moonlit, starry skies, she met a witch both old and wise. The lady asked for the witch's aid, and gave her silver and silk as trade. For this she gained a potion red, that would make her seem as though she's dead. Then by the light of the silver moon, she crept back hame and to her room. All alone, in her night gown, she drank the blood-red potion down. When her maid found the lady fair, she cried in shock and in despair. Her mistress was as pale as death, with no heartbeat or sign of breath. Her father did as he had vowed. Her sisters sewed her a white death shroud. Her brothers made a bier of birch to carry her to St. Mary's Church. At the first church bells were rung, at the second songs were sung, but at St. Mary's, to their alarm, the brothers met Scots men-at-arms. The troop was led by a brave young knight, who looked as though he was set to fight. Upon his shoulder, with a glare, sat a goshawk, proud and rare. The knight demanded the bier dropped, and he opened the coffin top. He took his lady's cold white hand, and helped his love to rise and stand. The maid was unsure upon her feet, after her 9 days of deathly sleep. She took some cake, and drank some ale, and looked at once less deathly pale. Her brothers cursed the fair young maid, and swore no dowry would be paid. She could have had an easy life, but now she'd be a poor Scots wife. The lady turned to her brothers 3, and said, That is no mind to me. What use are titles, wealth, and land, if I am wed to a weak old man? I'll take my chance with my Scots knight, who loves me true and treats me right. Go tell our mother, cruel and snide, that I shall be a happy bride. The brothers turned and rode away. The knight and maid were wed that day. Their lives were full of joy and laughter, as they lived happy ever after. The poem you just heard recounts most of the tale of the Gay Goshawk. The story's origins are a little uncertain. It was certainly told and is referred to in the Scottish borders in the early 19th century, but alternate versions of it also existed in England around the same time. This sort of cultural sharing was pretty common between the south of Scotland and the north of England. So it's impossible to tell really just how old the story is, although it can't be earlier than the late 15th century, because the lady, Catherine, was serving as a maid at the court of Henry VI. However, in almost every prose version of the story, Lady Catherine is described as having cheeks as red as an English rose, and the pure red Lancastrian rose was merged with the white York rose to make the Tudor Rose in 1471, following the end of the War of the Roses. The first proper record of the story that I can find comes from Scotland. Sir Walter Scott published a ballad version as early as 1802. However, Walter Scott noted that the version he published came in part from a ballad collected by Mrs. Brown, who was a famous collector of Scots ballads in the mid and late 1700s. A later record of at least two versions of the story can be found in the mid-19th century anthology, The English and Scottish Popular Ballads, which was collected and edited by the American folklorist Francis James Child. Child's ballads actually are an impressive collection of multiple versions of 305 different Scots and English folk tales, all set down in verse. As we moved into the 20th century, the prose version of the story gained popularity as the old ballad version fell sort of out of fashion. And the Gay Goshawk as a story can be found in numerous collections throughout the late 1800s and the early 1900s. The popularity of the prose and ballad forms of the tale is not surprising. The Gay Goshawk is a really great little story, and unlike a lot of Scots' love stories, it has an immensely satisfying ending, with the two protagonists actually ending up together and happy. At its core, The Gay Goshawk is a simple love story. Boy meets girl, and they overcome adversity in order to be together. However, like a lot of Scots folk tales, the female protagonist is far from simply a shrinking violet who passively requires rescuing by her handsome prince, or in this case, knight. In The Gay Goshawk, it's the girl, Lady Catherine, who effects her own rescue and escape from her father's castle. She comes up with the plan and she executes it herself. Strong and capable female protagonists are a frequent theme in Scots folk ballads. And this is something that I love about Scottish fairy stories. I think it lends the stories a level of believability and relatability that can often be lacking from other traditional fairy tales. I can only speculate as to why this actually is. I don't think that Scottish women were actually any more capable than their counterparts elsewhere. But the fact is that our folklore contains very few Sleeping Beauty or Rapunzel-like figures. One possible reason is that many of our old storytellers and ballad collectors were women. Since the oral tradition, which predates the written accounts, was often passed down by women to women, it makes a sort of sense that female characters would be more vibrant and believable. Stories written by men portray women as men wanted them to be at the time: deferential, passive, and needing to be rescued by the handsome prince. Whereas stories conceived and retold by women would portray women as they wanted to be: active, capable, and to some degree in control of their own fate. The Gay Goshawk does contain some classic fairy tale imagery and themes. There's an evil stepmother who wants Catherine to marry someone that she doesn't love and who is far too old for her. The stepmother is quite clearly the villain of the story, mistreating Catherine when she was young and favouring her own children over Catherine. Magically talking animals, like the goshawk, are also a common theme in Scots folk tales, and the image of the bird as a messenger of love is well established. Interestingly, though, in some of the later English versions of the story, the goshawk is replaced by a parrot, a bird which can actually talk. Sort of. The image of a woman feigning death is also common in both classic and traditional fairy stories. Sleeping Beauty and Snow White come to mind immediately, but there are French and English traditional tales which use the same idea, such as La Belle Isenberg from France, and probably most famously Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. I think that The Gay Goshawk is also a story of rebellion. Catherine rebels against not only her antagonistic stepmother, but society in general. For this, though, we have to consider the story in the context of when it was set and most likely conceived. Then it becomes a story of unusual personal female empowerment. Marrying for political convenience and wealth was by far the usual thing for nobility 300 or 400 years ago. Noble-born women were married off to powerful and rich men all the time, and marrying for love was a privilege that few, if any, were actually afforded. Today, hearing the story, we think Catherine is doing the normal thing and following her heart, but back then, she would have been defying convention and tradition to do it. When I wrote my retelling of the Gay Goshawk and my narrative ballad, which we heard at the beginning of this episode, I drew mostly on the prose versions of the story. But I thought it would be interesting to finish this episode with the earliest record of the story that I could find, which is the narrative ballad that Mrs. Brown collected in the mid 1700s. So here is the original Gay Goshawk ballad. Oh, well's me, my gay goshawk, that he can speak and flee. He'll carry a letter to my love and bring back another to me. Oh, how can I your true love ken, or how can I her know, when frae her mouth I never heard cooth, nor wi my eyes her saw? Oh, well sall ye my true love ken, as soon as you her see, for of a' the flowers of fair England, the fairest flower is she. Even at my love's bower door there grows a bowen birk, and sit ye down and sing thereon, as she gangs to the kirk. And 24 ladies fair will wash and go to kirk, but well shall ye my true love ken, for she wears gowd upon her skirt. And 24 gay ladies will to the mass repair, but well shall ye my true love ken, for she wears gowd upon her hair. Oh, even at the lady's bower door there grows a bowen birk, and she sat down and sang thereon, as she gaed to the kirk. Oh, eat and drink, my Marys a', the wine flows you among, till I gang to my shot window and hear yon bonny bird's song. Sing on, my bonny bird, the song ye sang the stream, for I ken by your sweet singing you're frae my true love seen. Oh, first he sang a merry song, and then he sang a grave, and then he pecked his feathers grey, to her the letter gave. Ha, there's a letter frae your love, he says he sent you 3. He canna wait your love langer, but for your sake he'll dee. He bids you write a letter to him, he says he's sent you 5. He canna wait your love langer, though you be the fairest woman alive. Ye, bid him bake his bridal bread, and brew his bridal ale, and I'll meet him in fair Scotland lang, afore it be stale. She's doon her to her father dear, fan low doon on her knee. A boon, my father dear, I pray you, grant it me. Ask on, my daughter, and granted shall it be, except a squire in fair Scotland, and him you shall never see. The only boon, my father dear, that I do crave of thee, is gin I die in southern lands, in Scotland bury me. And the first kirk that ye come till, gan gar the bells be rung, and the next kirk that ye come till, gar the mass be sung. And the third kirk that ye come till, you deal gold for my sick, and the fourth kirk that ye come till, you'll tarry there till nicht. She's done her to her bigly bower as fast as she could fare, and she has ta'en a sleepy draught that she had mixed wi' care. She's laid her down upon her bed as soon as she fan sleep, and soon o'er every tender limb cauld death began to creep. When nicht was flown and day was come, nae ane that did her see, but thought that she was as surely dead as ony lady could be. Her father and her brothers dear gar'd make to her a bier. The tae half was o' guid red gold, the tither o' silver clear. Her mither and her sisters fair gar'd work for her a sark. The tae half was o' camberk fine, the tither o' needlework. The first kirk that they came to, they gar'd the bells be rung. The next kirk that they came to, they gar'd the mass be sung. The third kirk that they came till, they dealt gold for her sake. And the fourth kirk that they came till, lo, there they mat her make. Lay doon the bigly beer, lat me the dead look on. Wi' cherry cheeks and ruby lips, she lay and smiled on him. O ae sheave o your bread, true love, and ae glass o your wine, for I hae fasted for your sake these fully days is 9. Gang hame, my 7 bold brothers, gang hame and sound your horn, and ye may boast in southern lands your sisters played you scorn. Whew. So that brings us to the end of another episode. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I very much hope to see you next story.